Hello and welcome to another Path of Exile 1 video. So there's been a lot of build drama with a lot of different content creators, but I genuinely don't care about a lot of it because it's all if you're not doing T17's opening weekend, your build isn't a league starter type type crowd. If you want like an actual good like league starter suggestion list, um, Spicy did his own video. I genuinely think he has solid takes on a lot of the different builds. Like you can start like PoE is in a state where most builds, if there's a hole in the economy, you can make a build work. And the main thing that is going to prevent you as a new player or someone trying out a new experimental style build from succeeding is unique pressure. So anytime you open up a POB and there's like 4, 5, 6 uniques, and most of them are all worth like a div or two, like the first couple of days, even like a week into a league, if you want to get a perfect roll with like Catalyst, it all of a sudden gets a lot more expensive. So I do like Jungroan's POB, but I want to make sure that if you are curious about playing this build, there are a lot of things that you definitely need to look for in your POB and when you're actually like playing the game on like how it actually functions. So his helmet, this is the first red flag to me, is it has 20% reduced mana cost of attacks and 7% increased mana reservation efficiency of skills. This is fixing his mana. However, he still has not enough unreserved. Like, even if he was using Legacy and then Eternal, Perseverance, and Taman. So even just 100 mana with how many skills he's using, you have a Desecrate with a 26 mana cost. You have a Punishment that you actually have to like auto cast. That has a mana cost of 33. You have Shield Charge, mana cost of 6, and this is with the helmet on. You have Frostblink, mana cost of 15. You have Reave, mana cost of 14. You have the General's Cry that is auto exerted, so um, every 2.34 seconds it's going to automatically consume 10 mana. So, what are some ways that you can fix this? Like, even with the helm at like level 100, because this POB is not actually for level 100, so your mana is going to be even less. What are some ways that you can actually like work around this? Number one is an unending mana flask, but that's obviously not optimal at like the super top end. Uh, oh yeah, that's mana reservation efficiency as well. So I'm gonna take off all of this because this is kind of just like padding what he's trying to accomplish here. I don't hate the build. Let me make this fully apparent. I don't hate the build. I genuinely am probably going to use General's Cry in a 4-link setup, but in my own Reave build, but that's for a completely different reason. And I can talk about that much later on. Um, the body armor, we can leave that in because I think that it is possible to get the endurance charge every 15 seconds. You have the mastery here. On top of that, you can try to get endurance charge of melee stun. You can also get aggressive bastion, and this will help even maintain your endurance charges while mapping like very, very, very high because you gain 8% here and then you gain an additional 10% here. Obviously, that's 3 points. But the primary thing that I want to fix is actually this whole like helmet mana reservation stuff. So number one is you could just use an Alpha Sowl. Alpha Sowl would fix it entirely. But Alpha Sowl is probably going to be more on the expensive, like day one gear. A lot of Orobots, they'll use Alpha Sowl, even if it's only for like a couple of hours, they're still going to use Alpha Sowl. Maybe they switch over to a different helmet. Who I don't know the full lengths of like trade league shenanigans, but Alpha Sowl is an option. There's always the div cards for it, etc. The number one thing that you can do is just pick up Champion of the Cause. So the pathing that he took, you have a lot of options to get a lot of reduced mana reservation. So he has the Mana Mastery. He takes Leader of the Pack. And then he also packs paths next to another Mana Mastery, which could also help alleviate some of the mana cost. So you would have to drop damage in order to make all of this work. Like you would 100% would have to. So that is an option. The other thing is his gloves have rage on hit. A lot of these implicits you're probably not going to get day one, and if you do, it's probably going to be on a base that you want to rapidly replace. You can always just pick up one rage on melee hit. Maybe you want to also pick up and go this side just so that inherent loss of rage is a little bit slower. Because of the amount of like potential casting, I think that there's room to go more on the inherent side, especially if you're like a slower player, or maybe you just want to map very defensively. Maybe you don't have well-rounded defenses. Inherent rage is 10% slower, is very comfortable for that. It also gives you like opportunity to loot items, etc. off the floor, because you also have the baseline inherent loss starts 1 second later. Like this whole wheel here is very, very, very powerful for that. Additionally, to help with this mana stuff, you could always, there's one of these reduced mana. One of these I think is a very cheap anoint. Yeah, Dreamer. You can always anoint Dreamer. You could always like anoint Righteous Decree. Obviously it's not going to be like a permanent fix, but just for even like going through your white maps or whatever, like this could be something that helps you out a lot. So like this node here, it gives you plus 15 unreserved mana, and like just your General's Cry alone costs 10 mana, whereas this one here, it gives you a little bit higher mana regen, and then for the purpose of General's Cry, it actually lowers the mana cost by 1. So depending on whatever skill you use, it's going to decrease the total mana cost. And this build uses multiple different skills, like -2 mana cost on the Desecrate, -1 on your Frostblink, -3 on your Punishment. So I think that is an option for those wanting to play this build as well, to help alleviate a lot of the mana cost. And then for 2 points, you can always just pick up this node here. Like this is going to reduce your mana cost by a lot for your Reave, going down to 5 mana cost. And then when you hover over this, it's still going to give you -3 mana cost. And that is with conjunction of the nodes over there. Maybe that is is that like meeting a breakpoint, or does this just scale differently? I'm not entirely certain on how all that works. Additionally, the Mastery, you can get 10% reduced mana cost of skills here. This, now all of a sudden your Reave is 10 mana, your General's Cry is 9 mana, the Desecrate is 24 mana, Punishment is 30 mana, Shield Charge is 4 mana, Frostblink is 14. So I definitely think that there is room to make slight altercations. Like maybe you don't pick up a Jewel Socket. Maybe you, I don't know, you don't run like the Cloth and Chain node, even though this is very, very powerful for your character. Maybe you just don't run it early and instead you pick it up. Or maybe you don't want to instead path all the way up here. You could drop that and run like more nodes over on this side. You could run this sword wheel. It's not as efficient, but it'll still let you get the mastery for the frenzy charge for a single target when using a sword. I think Hions Fury is relatively like accessible for this build. Obviously, you are intelligence and you are strength starved for the gear that he wants to use. That's probably why he's using the Eternal Struggle in this PoB. That combined with the RMR and the global defenses, etc., you can get the other mods as well. But most people are not going to have this. Like, this is not going to be available like day 1, day 2 for the vast majority of people to completely fix their character. That's just reality. Now, let's talk about General's Cry, Blade Flurry for the purpose of like a Reave in your 6th link. I think General's Cry, if you use like an Honor Home, this is a really popular item during League start, but this gives +2 level of socketed gems. You can use this with like a General's Cry and a Blade Flurry, because Blade Flurry gains a lot more damage for just getting ranks. So I think an Honor Home is very valuable. I think for this build specifically, Thunder Fist is also another item that might be very valuable, because this gives socketed gems are supported by a level 30 added lightning damage, and it gives 100% increased effective lightning ailments. Obviously, it has a 51 int requirement, but you already need 68 for the purpose of the other skills. So you're going to meet the int requirement if you want to play his PoB the way that he's got it described. But you can use this early on, and you can put your General's Cry Blade Flurry setup in here. So the links would be General's Cry, Blade Flurry, Auto Exert, and I would go either with elemental damage with attacks, volatility. Close combat is another option, but yeah, I don't know what exactly is going to PoB the highest, but looks like volatility PoB is the highest, and you would be running with a level 30 added lightning. So yeah, I think that's a valid way to do it as well. For the purpose of like the build that I'm playing, I definitely think that like getting a Thunder Fist and using a Thunder Fist with the General's Cry Blade Flurry setup like early on in mapping to even getting like your Void Stones for a General's Cry is probably a good way to boost the damage, and then you would just drop like the Skitterbot Bone Chill setup and just run up flat Skitterbots, and you could even pick up like Champion of the Cause. For the purpose of like Reave at League starts, going Precise Technique is really worth it early on, because you can kind of just like front load the damage and scale it that way. But for my Reave build, I plan on leveling as Econk, at least at the current time. I am going to do a run where I just use Reave and Blade Flurry and do the General's Cry bullshit and see how far that takes me. But it's a lot of buttons. If you don't like playing with a lot of buttons, maybe not play it, but it's completely up to you. Additionally, you can always get like just an unset ring with reduced mana cost. So I think he could have probably done the day 1 PoB a little bit better. Obviously, he wants to make the PoB do as much damage as humanly possible. Still, you have a 530k Blade Flurry DPS, but you can have 6 of them. So that's like your burst DPS using a General's Cry. And then let's just drop this down to a 4 link, and you're still at 1.4. And then let's just add in the added lightning. Set this to level 30. This is just to simulate the gloves instead of putting it in the PoB. And then you need to also consider that you're going to have 100% increased effective lightning ailments. And your Reave, if it's in a 6-link setup, it will have a much larger average hit damage because it's fucking Reave. Like, let's be honest here. Like, that's the entire purpose of why Reave is good. Like, the Blade Flurry, it says the average damage is 21,000, but it's probably not going to be as high until you get the Perkle's toe thing on your mercenary type gig, because this just hits a ton of times. Sure, it might apply a very high shock every once in a while, but if you do a Reave setup and you actually like put in proper links, your average damage is just going to eclipse what the Reave is doing, or what the Blade Flurry is doing. Your channel and release average in this pseudo 5 link is 21k, and if you go to a 6 link, it's 17k. So you actually gain damage by using Thunder Fist in this build over rare gloves with the rage on melee hit. But it does require you to build up rage elsewhere, so that is more passive point strictness. So these are things to look out for when it comes to his PoB. I do think that this is good build. I think it's viable. I think it's viable in SSF. I think it warrants discussion. However, this is a lot of buttons. This is just facts. Like, this is a lot of buttons. Like, I didn't enable Smite because I don't think most people are going to be comfortable pressing all these different buttons. I just don't. Obviously, the General's Cry, Blade Flurry stuff, that's automated. Reave and Vol Reave is basically two things. So your right click and let's just say your middle mouse button. And then you have Blood and Sand, which you are probably not going to switch around a lot. You will want to go into sand stance in certain maps and certain layouts and certain affixes on the maps. So like if it has reduced or less player AoE, you 100% need to go into sand stance. Like, that's just a fact. Else your AoE is going to be like super tiny, and you're going to have a Desecrate. Let's just say that can go on like your Q or W. You then have Punishment, Shield Charge, and Frostblink. So W, E, R. So it is like all of your buttons are going to be needed in order to play a build like this. And that's without like using the Smite. That's without using any of the other stuff. But I do think it's definitely a valid build. He wants to go champion at league start and then switch into a Slayer for like the super late game. And you can honestly just like level it as a Slayer, but you would obviously do like the precise technique setup, everything else like that. Like, this is very like min-maxy. Like, this is just not DPS that you really... This is not DPS that I would say that is absolutely required to like a burst phase of like 300 million DPS is not required to beat the end game. Like, it's just not. Also, it's kind of funny, his dexterity is actually not high enough for his own PoB, but I mean, you can fix that. It's completely fixable. I don't know how many... I didn't do... Oh yeah, his mana's cooked. Yeah, this entire PoB would have to be changed around to play his like endgame setup. Like, this just does not work. But I think the core concept of using General's Cry, Blade Flurry, is solid, and it definitely warrants a look at, and may be very, very nice in a Thunder Fist for your character. Whether you go like Slayer, Champion, Warden, Trickster, any of the other ascendancies. Honestly, you can play Reave on a lot of different ascendancies. Like, it's completely fine. It's completely valid. It's completely viable. I guess viable to you might be something completely different than I would say viable is, but We all have our own expectations of what a build can and cannot complete in the end game. So yeah, cheers. See ya. Peace.